Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how to outline an image using GIMP. And really this video is what actually created the need for me to make a previous video where I made the logo that we're going to use. But in this video I'm going to just show you how you can create an outline on an image, particularly a PNG. If you have, I'll show you how you can do it if there's a background as well, but we'll start out with just the PNG that has a transparent background. So we're going to use this logo that I have on my desktop, and to get it into GIMP we're just going to drag it over here and drop it, and GIMP's going to open it, and it's going to put it in the center of the canvas. So now we have our logo, and just for ease of seeing what we're doing, I'm going to make the canvas a little bigger than this layer. And to do that, I'm going to come up here to Image, and I'm going to go to Canvas Size, and then I'm just going to increase the height. I'm just going to round it off to 250, like that, and maybe make this 1950. And now we should have a little bit more of a border, and we do. However, now we don't have our logo in the center, and actually I want that to be a little bigger, so let's go up a little bit more. Let's go to canvas size. Let's make this 2000, and we'll make this 300. That's a little better. So now I'm going to come up here to this this move tool, and if you see, when you point at this for a second, you'll see that there's another item in this group that you can't see on the toolbar, and that's the Align and Distribute tool. And you can't move off of this without making it go away, but you can right click this and then select Align and Distribute. And if you do that, that'll allow you to align whatever the yellow bounding box is around the item. You'll be aligning it with where these 4 square points are on the other item. And you'll see that we want to align this relative to the image, is what I have selected, and the yellow bounding box is around what's going to be aligned. So I'm just going to click this center, and I'm going to click the center up and down, and now we're good to go. I'm going to change this back to the move tool, and now we have our logo in the middle of the area that we're working on. So I said what we're going to do is we're going to add an outline to this logo, and I'm going to show you how to do it for something that has a transparent background to start off with, and then after we do that I'll put a background on it, and then I'll show you how to do it if there's a background that you want to remove, which will add another step, but it'll give us a chance to put the outline on there twice, which is just repetition for reinforcement. So what we're going to do first is to add an outline to this text, which is not really text, it's just a bunch of pixels that are this particular color. If we zoom in here far enough, you'll see this isn't a vector. We exported it as a ping from the other video. So you've got some pixels here that are partially transparent. You can kind of see through them. And what that means is you don't have a nice crisp edge, but at any rate, if you're working with a PNG, this is what you're going to have. And if you're trying to add an outline to it, you're going to want that outline to be around the outside. So what you want to do is, the easiest way to do this that I know of is just come down here to the, I wish I could make that bigger, and I think there's a way you can, but I'm not going to take the time to find it. But you see this little image here, this thumbnail of what we're looking at up here? If you point at that and you hold down your Alt key on your keyboard and you click it, watch what happens to the logo. we just selected all of the pixels in the logo that are not, that have no transparency, or that have actually what it does is it selects only the ones with 50% or more opacity is what I believe it does. Because you'll see these real light ones, they didn't get selected, but these darker ones did. So it had to make a choice. Is this something to select, or is it something not to select? And I think that the range gets clipped at 50 on that, but I'm not actually 100% certain on it. But you get the idea. We've selected the logo. So now we have a selection. How do we turn that into an outline? Well, you can come up here to your select menu and click select, and then you can come down here to grow. And if you grow that selection, this is set to 4. Let's make it something larger just to make it easier to see. I'm going to go up to 12 and click OK. And now you'll see that the selection has grown. And now it's larger than the text, right? So what we want to do now that we have a selection that's larger than the actual text for the logo is we want to create a new layer. And you do that just by clicking this create a new layer button down here. You can name it if you want. I'm just going to leave it at the default. And what that does is it puts a transparent layer with no pixels. All the pixels are transparent, but there's a new layer now that we can select. And if it's selected, you'll see that it's highlighted like mine is here. And let's say we want to use an outline that is opposite of the color that we have here. And in the color world, the opposite of blue is orange. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to pick an orange color. Here, some shade of orange. I'm going to select that. And now I have orange selected as my color. And I have a selection here that is on top of the blue. And that's okay for now. We're going to grab the paint bucket tool by clicking it. And then we're just going to, somewhere inside of the selection, we're going to click with this layer selected. Not the logo layer, but the one with the empty pixels on it, or with the transparent pixels on it. And we're just going to dump that orange paint right inside of that selection. Now we no longer need that selection, so I'm going to hold down Control, Shift, and I'm going to hit the A key, and you'll see that all the selection went away. Now we have the orange outline on top of the logo, but if we just move this down to below it, there we have an outline text. So now you have a logo with some outline text on it. You could save it like this, or you could, to make the file a little smaller, it won't matter in this case, but let's say you wanted to not have all this orange. See, all this orange is actually underneath this blue, and while you can't see it, it's still data in the file. And so if you wanted to, just for the fun of it, I'm gonna point at this again, and I'm gonna hold down the Alt key, and I'm gonna select that text again, and then I'm gonna turn off this layer, and I'm gonna select the orange, and I'm just gonna hit the delete key. And now I've removed all of that text, or all of that color that was inside of that selection. So if I hold down Control Shift A, that'll deselect everything. Then I can turn this back on. It looks the same, but there's less information in the file, so the file's a little smaller. And that doesn't really matter all that much for this, but if you're doing a big project, that could make a big difference on your on how fast your computer actually runs. At any rate, you have there the demonstration of how you can add an outline to an image. Now, what if the background is all one color? Let's do that. Let's just fill this entire background in with orange. I should have done this. I'm going to add a new layer over the top of this orange, and I'm just going to fill it all in with orange, and then I'm going to merge that down, and now we have this. We have a background with a different color for the logo. And when you're really going to want to know how to do this is when it's all one layer. So I'm going to merge this down so that it all becomes one layer. And now we can't do that trick where we held down the Alt key and clicked the layer because there's color on every pixel. So how are we going to do this? Well, the easiest way to do this is to come up here and right click. In this case where you only have two colors like I do, the easiest way is to select by color, and then you just come down here and click the orange and it selects all the orange, and then you could either delete it like that and you'll still get some orange residue. So if you do that, what you'll want to do is either before or after. I'm just going to do it after, but you could have done this before. Well, let's do it before. I'll put the orange back. You have the selection, you zoom in, you see that it's got some orange selected. You just use that same select, only we're going to shrink it this time. Before we grew it because we wanted to make what we were going to fill bigger, but here we want to shrink it. So we want to shrink this down, and I'm just going to do two pixels. Shrink the selection by 2 pixels. I think that will do the trick. Oh, actually, we wanted to, that's important because I'm going to explain what just happened there. What just happened was we shrunk it, but because we selected the orange, it pulled back in this direction. You could do this either one of two ways. You could either invert the selection and then shrink it like we just did, or you can hit grow here. So just to add another demonstration, we're going to invert the selection. So just imagine that we just selected this, and you want to come up here and go to select, and instead of coming down here to shrink or grow, just hit invert. And now it doesn't look any different, and that's why it was confusing before. It doesn't look any different, but a different thing is selected. So now when we scroll in and zoom in here, the part that's selected is the blue part now, not the orange. And we do want to shrink it now. So we're going to click select, shrink. Going to still do 2. And now you'll see actually 2 might have been a little too much. So I'll hit Control Z to back up, and I will shrink that selection by just 1 pixel. Let's see what that does. That looks like a better selection, I think. So now that we've selected, remember the blue part is what's selected. So now what we're going to have to do is we're either going to have to move this blue to another layer, or we can go and use the invert command again to go back to the orange. So let's invert the selection, and then we'll hit the delete key. And now we're back to where we were a little bit ago, only there's no orange in this selection. So how do we put the outline on it? Well, we do it the same way we did before. Now we have the background selected, so we're going to have to invert the selection again to go back to the blue, right? And then we'll grow that selection by clicking select and grow. And we're going to grow it this time. Instead of doing it by 12, let's just do it by like 8. See what it looks like with 8. It still grows together. The letters still grow together like this, but it's not so big that it's all that large. So let's add our blank layer to the top, and let's go with a instead of doing an opposite, let's do something similar. Let's grab a sample from that color of blue, and then we'll just take the saturation. Let's make the saturation a little, I'll tell you what, instead of doing that, let's switch over to HSV or LCH. No, let's do HSV. We'll just do that. We'll just do what we were going to do. We'll take this up and we'll make it a lighter color of blue. If we wanted to go really light, we could, but so I think that's good enough for demonstration. So we'll click OK, and now we have this color, and we're going to fill this selected layer with this color. But remember, we got to do it inside of the selection, so we're going to fill that in there, and then we just drop this down to below the previous one. You could do this a bunch of different ways. I'm just showing you a couple of different variations that you might run into when you're trying to do this. But you'll see now that we have, the thing about this though is when there's a background color and you have to select this, you'll see that it kind of gets a little jagged because the selection, and there are ways that you can smooth that out when you do the selection, but that's beyond the scope of this video. But that's an example of how you can put an outline on an image. And I showed you two different ways. I showed you with a transparent image, and I showed you with an image that has a background already on it. I showed you how to use selections and invert the selections, and how you can manage what pixels you want to either remove or add to or shrink or even fill in with the paint bucket. Again, you could do the same thing we did before, and you could go back and select this again. That's worth noting here. You'll see that now that we have a layer here that's transparent except for a color, we can use that trick again where we select the pixels that have color in them, and then we could turn this off, turn that on, and then hit the delete key, and then turn this back on, and again you have your logo. So that's a couple of different ways that you can edit an image and add an outline to it. If it has a transparent background, you can do it in about half the time. If it has a background, you're going to have to make a selection, and in this case we just used the color select, but in cases where it's maybe an image, you might have to use a different selection tool, and maybe I'll do a different video about that. But this video, I showed you two ways to add an outline to an image. So I hope that helps, and thanks for watching.